course we are. They're not ready for E1 players. Coming up today on the show, Dan Graziano is going to stop by to give us all the intel for week number 16. We've got our crystal ball projections. Plus, I've got some free agent tight ends for you to pick up. But first, you can scroll. Today's show will be...
Oh, it's a great question, Matthew. It is a... Oh, it's going to be a Festivus Day miracle.
A Festivus for the rest of us. 'Twas the night before the fantasy finals, and all through the set, not a puppet was stirring, not one roster starting a jet. The talking socks were hung by the chimney with care, and they all surely hoped stupid Squirrel would stop standing there. The minions were nestled, all snug in their suits, while the bear was dreaming of Tyler Eifart jokes, which he capped with a toot-toot. And Crystal on her table, thinking up her next rap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the fake lawn there arose such a clatter, Squirrel sprang from his spot to see what was the matter. Away to the window he flew like a flash and scratched at his beard because he had a bad rash. When what to our wondering eyes did appear but a literal straw man slurping a root beer.
Now Barry, now Squirrel, both stupid and dumb. Do you dare start Blake Bortles, a long-established bum, at the top of your league in fantasy football? No way I start Bortles. No way I do it at all.
Good question, straw man. Posed before a wild Week 16 does fly.
Hey, Barry, shut up. Stop doing this, guy. No, seriously, I didn't intend to rhyme there. Go back to where you belong. Over there and break down your fake football. Go. Go to your spot. Your Christmas poem is just terrible. You're ruining Christmas for me, and I love Christmas. LeBron plays on Christmas on ABC.
All right, Norby, I get it. Thank you, boss. No more poem, I promise. But yeah, Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles is a viable starting option in your fantasy finals. Look, I get it, right? It has been a weird year. The government admitted to funding a program to investigate UFOs. ESPN gave me a TV show. And over the last 3 weeks, Blake Bortles has been literally the best quarterback in fantasy football. He now has 18-plus points in 4 straight, and he's still available in more than 50% of leagues. This week, Bortles is playing the San Francisco 49ers. They've given up multiple touchdown passes in 8 of their last 9 games. And next week, if your fantasy league extends to Week 17, as is the default setup in ESPN leagues, the Jags are playing Tennessee, Titans 20th against the pass this year. You want to know how crazy the 2017 season has become? Here are some other names of quarterbacks that are on my love list this week, which is likely the fantasy championship in your league. Case Keenum. Mike Zimmer refuses to commit to him, but I will. Multiple touchdown passes now in 4 straight for Keenum, and in 6 of the last 7. I have Keenum as a top 10 play against the Packers team that gives up the 7th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers. I know, he crushed you last week, but you know what? I'm back in on him. Remember, this is a guy who was QB4 in weeks 11 through 14, and he gets a Jets team this week that's allowed the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. And if you need someone outside the top 12, I'll say it. I like Jameis Winston. 3 straight weeks of 270-plus passing yards and multiple passing touchdowns. Panthers are 28th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. Whatever quarterback you choose, I hope their star shines bright. Good luck in Week 16, and to all, a good night. Seahawks tight end Jimmy Graham missed practice on Thursday. Now, it was just a veteran rest day, but the idea of Graham being a no-show, probably not a surprise to those of you who have him on your roster, because, let's face it, he's pretty much been a no-show in fantasy football the last 2 weeks. Graham was drafted as tight end 5 before the season, and heading into Week 13, he was actually tight end 4 in terms of total points. But the last 2 weeks, he's literally done nothing. Week 14, no receptions against the Jaguars. Week 15 against the Rams, 1 catch for -1 yard. -1 yard total for the last 2 weeks. Literally, Daniel and I have more receiving yards than Jimmy Graham since Week 14. So fantasy players are in a bit of a jam. A Graham jam, if you will. Or even if you won't. Look, it's my show. What are you going to do about it? Personally, if I have Graham, look, I'm playing him, okay? After last week's debacle, I believe the entire Seahawks team rebounds. That includes Jimmy Graham. Since Week 9, Cowboys have allowed the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends, right? But if you don't want to start Graham, or you don't have a viable option at the tight end position, here's some guys I like this week who are available in over 50% of ESPN leagues. We start with Jesse James. The Outlaw was the one who was robbed last week when his touchdown was overturned, but this week he plays Houston. Texans allow the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends on the year, and over the last 5 games, James is averaging 6.2 targets. I expect that number to go up with Antonio Brown out of the lineup. James available in 80% of ESPN leagues. I also like a blast from the past this week. Antonio Gates. Did you know tight ends have 22 red zone targets from Phillip Rivers this season? That's third most in the NFL. And they play a Jets team that have allowed 8 touchdowns this year, also third most. With Hunter Henry out for the year, expect Gates to get those Rivers red zone targets on Sunday. Antonio Gates, who probably helped you win your fantasy league in 2004, can do so again here in 2017. In this, the official season of NFL injuries, no team has gone in on that trend more than my Washington Redskins. Seriously, this isn't just me being a bitter Redskins fan. I mean, partially that, but look at all of these names on Washington's reserve injured list. It's insane, right? And by the way, that list doesn't even include Trent Williams, who is likely to be shut down for the year soon. So when the news came out that running back Samaje Perine tweaked his groin in practice and is now a question mark for this week, my reaction was, of course. Of course he did. It's been such a brutal season for the Redskins. If Perine can't go on Sunday and missed practice on Friday, doesn't look like he's going to be able to go, Washington's run game is in the hands of Capri Bibbs and LaShawn Daniels Jr. That's right, LaShawn Daniels Sr., who went to Ohio State and played one game at guard for the Vikings in 1997, has a kid in the NFL. Feel old, Daniel?
No, I've never heard of LaShawn Daniels Jr. or LaShawn Daniels Sr.
Fair enough. Listen, whoever gets a start for Washington, I can't imagine starting them behind a banged-up offensive line, especially against the Broncos team that's top 8 against the run over the last 4 weeks. So because Perine might have been your flex, here are some flex running backs I really like this week, starting with Theo Riddick. Now, Riddick has averaged 17 fantasy points over the last 3 weeks, and now he gets the Bengals, who are officially the Bungles again. Cincinnati, over the last 4 weeks, has allowed the most receiving yards to running backs, the most yards per reception to running backs, and the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Riddick, incidentally, available in nearly 40% of ESPN leagues. He's a top 25 running back for me in PPR. Or how about C.J. Anderson? During the last 3 weeks, no running back in the NFL has more carries than C.J. Anderson. That kind of volume is going to work well against a banged-up Redskins defense. It's the 5th most rushing yards in the NFL. I have Anderson as a top 20 play this week. And if you need to grab a guy off the wire, you can take a look at Wayne Gallman of the Giants. Back-to-back weeks now of at least 13.9 fantasy points. Gallman has 13 catches over the last 2 games, second only to Le'Veon Bell in that span. I'm not saying Gallman is Le'Veon Bell, but Arizona has allowed the 11th most receptions to running backs this season. You could do worse than Gallman for a flex in PPR. So we have done 90 days this show, but this is my favorite thing we've done all year. Why? Because I made the finals in our show league. Check out my semifinal matchup with our intern, Jack. Dude had 169.2 points, right? A crazy, crazy game. He had Gurley, and yet I still managed to beat him. Thank you, Robbie Gould. Thank you, Kareem Hunt. Thank you, Alvin Kamara. That last-second field goal by Robbie Gould is what put me over the top, Daniel. What do you think? Awesome, right?
I got to be honest, most of the things you've done on this show have been average to below average, mostly below average, but you actually have a legitimate fantasy team here on your hands, man.
I'm the host of the fantasy show, so I should know a thing or two about fantasy football. Thank you. Now, in the finals, I am playing Fabrizio. So if you look at my matchup here, I'm curious what you think. In the flex spot, I've got a choice between either Alex Collins or Dion Lewis, which you see there. Now, I have Lewis one spot higher, but the fact of the matter is I've also got Brandon Cooks and Tom Brady. Is that too many eggs in the Patriots basket?
I might think so. I mean, Alex Collins has been RB7 since his bye week, and here's the thing. This is what I'm saying. If the Patriots somehow have a bad day, I might like the idea of having a higher floor with Alex Collins.
Yeah, I think I may go with Collins there. I've been going back and forth. I have them one spot between each other. We'll see how that plays out next week. Good luck to me. Coming up next, our rhyming crystal ball puppet makes a joke about some round object she's dating. I wonder why she's never gone out with an orange football on Christmas. And what better matchup than the Raiders and Eagles? Will Philly fans boo Santa Claus again? Our coverage kicks off at 6 p.m. Eastern with Countdown. Hey, it's championship week. That means you have wide receivers on your roster. You're curious how said wide receivers will perform? Enter our all-seeing crystal ball. Crystal, how is the holiday season treating you?
Just terrible, Matthew. My new boyfriend is stuck in a tree.
A tree? Are you dating a cat?
Yeah.
No, I told you, I only date balls. He's working overtime as a Christmas ornament. Looks like another lonely holiday for old Crystal.
Sorry about that, Crystal. All right.
Hey.
Who's first up?
All right. First up, we have Mike Evans.
I texted the fantasy gods in the fantasy heavens. Who dis? Said they. Oh, it's Crystal. 13.5 points for Mike Evans.
That's not bad.
Texting. I don't know how she texts. She doesn't have arms. But all right, fair enough. I'm taking the over here, Secret Squirrel. You think about the last 3 games that Evans has played against these Panthers, 16.5 fantasy points. That's what he averages. And the Panthers defense, allowing the 10th most fantasy points per game to perimeter wide receivers, where Evans mostly lines up.
And I will double down on your perimeter wide receivers. The Panthers have allowed the 5th most PPR points games to just wide receivers overall. So I'm also going to take the over on this one.
Yeah, it should be a big game for him. Who's next?
Next up, Golden Tate.
Nerds like Matthew crunch numbers, but I know it's just fate. Nothing can prevent exactly 13.4 points for Golden Tate.
She called you a nerd.
Yeah, she did. Fair enough. Well, I'm taking the under here on Golden Tate. Look, Bengals actually have allowed the 2nd fewest completions and 3rd lowest completion percentage to slot receivers, where Tate lines up most of the time. He's had just 2 touchdowns since 2014 when he's outdoors, which is where he plays this game.
I understand that. He's had 5 double-digit games since week 8. And to be honest, the Bengals are just mailing it in true Albert Hainsworth style. I'm taking Golden Tate going with the over.
All right. We'll see how that one plays out. Who's next?
Next up, Martavis Bryant.
If your fantasy championship was Antonio Brown reliant, bad news, loser. Just 11.4 points for Martavis Bryant.
Antonio Brown reliant is not a verb you often hear. I'm going to take the over here, Crystal. Honestly, 30% of his team's targets, Antonio Brown goes out the window now with him not playing here. Texans, since week 8, have allowed the most fantasy points to wide receivers. They rank in the bottom 5 in catches, yards, and touchdowns by wideouts. Give me some Martavis Bryant this week.
100%. I am totally with you. He's had at least 4 catches in each of the last 4 games. I think that number's going to go up this week, so I'm taking the over as well.
Who's next?
Next up, Robbie Anderson.
Want to hunt for pandas? You should buy a panda gun. Want to lose at fantasy? 10.7 points for Robbie Anderson.
That's my favorite one of the year.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a panda gun. I'm taking the under here, Secret Squirrel. Chargers opponents completing a league low 29% of passes at least 15 yards downfield. They really defend the deep pass well, and that's much of Anderson's game. Bryce Petty, I don't know, can he get the ball to Anderson?
Did you say Bryce Petty?
Yeah.
Oh, I threw up in my mouth a little bit. I'm going to take the under because you said Bryce Petty. Bryce Petty?
Yeah, he has struggled so far this year. It's just to me, he's a risk-reward play. Yeah,
No good.
I'm going to take the under
No good.
on 10.7. Yep.
All right, next up, Sterling Shepard.
I see a white Christmas. The snow will be a swirling. But my rhymes are the best presents. 11.9 points for Shepard, comma, Sterling.
I hate you so much. I hate you so much.
That one was bad. That's a bad one. Merry Christmas to us. Look, Cardinals have allowed 7 double-digit fantasy points by wide receivers, including 4 that primarily line up in the slot. The 3rd most receptions to opposing slot receivers, where Sterling Shepard lines up. Yeah, give me the over on Sterling Shepard.
I'm going to take the over as well. He had 16 targets last game, and the only thing that Giants offense has is Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram. So I think that volume is going to be there again this week.
Yeah, I'm as a top 20 play. Thank you, Crystal. Happy holidays to you. Thank you, Secret Squirrel. Time now to make some history. Brought to you by Jim Beam. This is how we make history. How will you make yours? Fournette, 3 points away from becoming the 4th rookie running back this year with 200 points. There have actually been only 2 since the merger with 4 rookie running backs seeing at least 200 points, 1980 and 2008. The future at running back is bright. Coming up, it's Flex Friday, people. Our buddy Dan Graziano is going to rank his top 5 flex options for Week 16. So stay tuned.
Make History is presented by Jim Beam. This is how we make history. How will you make yours?
In the playoffs, one decision can be the difference between victory and the end of your season. So don't make a move without checking with IBM Watson first. Find the insights, master the risks and rewards. It's fantasy football with Watson. Thank you, me. Magically, I'm now at the desk with Dan Graziano, who's here. TV magic, my friend. Can't reveal all the secrets, but Dan, you're here to make us smarter. You talk to all the general managers, the coaches, the scouts. You talk to everyone, the insider's insider, and you've got your Week 16 flex rankings. You're in the fantasy championship of your own league.
I am.
So let's start with
the
your
skin of my teeth.
Whatever,
but I got there.
You're playing in the finals, so we know you're a big fantasy football fan. At number 5, you've got Robert Woods.
Yeah, Robert Woods. When Robert Woods is in the Rams lineup, the offense can function the way it wants to. And what the Rams offense wants to do is dominate the entire world. I mean, they score at an extremely high level when he's there. He's their deep threat guy, so, definitely you'll see, I think, less of Cooper Kupp in the game plan. Obviously, still tons of Todd Gurley. That's what they really want to do. But Woods is the guy that can hit a big play for you And you saw what Marquise Goodwin did against Tennessee last week, so it's certainly available to him if he wants it. And they do want to hit that big play with Robert Woods. It stretches out a lot of things, makes things easier for Gurley.
No question about it. Titans 20th against the pass over the last 4 weeks. That's a secondary you can exploit. All right, number 4, you've got Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, I just went with Demaryius Thomas in what I think is going to be a really low-scoring game against Washington. And I just think this is a fairly safe play, especially if you're in PPR. Because I think whoever the quarterback is, and they don't know week to week in Denver who it's going to be, this is a guy that they've determined can make that quarterback's life easier. Shorter catches, close to the line of scrimmage, able to get open in tight spaces. So, he's a guy that has 30 targets over his last 3 games. He's a big part of their game plan, and it's a scaled-down offense. They haven't run the ball very well, but he's someone I think they believe they can lean on a little bit at this point.
And they like doing like those quick, to your point, those quick screens, those bubble screens to him, like just a couple of free receptions there for Demaryius Thomas, who obviously has that big playability and a big red zone threat. Now, this one is surprising to me. Number 3, Joe Mixon.
Well, I like the matchup against the Lions. I mean, they get torn up by running backs every single week, right? So I think Mixon, we were watching this throughout the week, looks like he's going to be okay. He's been in concussion protocol, so you never know for sure until he's all the way cleared for the game. But assuming he is cleared for the game, this is an offense that likes to run the ball, that likes to slow the game down. This is a running back who's shown an ability to hit big plays in the run game. They also throw the ball to him. So I think a lot of opportunity there for Mixon, assuming he's on the field, which as of now, it looks like he probably will be.
I'm a little concerned just because I'm worried about the entire Bengals offense. They feel like they've phoned it in. Lions did shut down Jordan Howard last week. And you might see more Giovanni Bernard, who has performed well the last couple of weeks with Mixon out. So could it be more of a running back by committee? You and I both agree he's a flex play. I'm probably a little bit lower on him than you are. So we'll see how that plays out. Number 2, I do like this call quite a bit, Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs, I'm playing against this guy. Maybe, I got 2 of these guys. Woods and Diggs are in my opponent's lineup. So maybe I'm just
Here's
scared,
hoping you're wrong.
Right? Maybe, exactly. Here's hoping I'm wrong. But Diggs against Green Bay, I mean, they've been shredded by wide receivers. Last week they were not, but Carolina lit them up with Greg Olsen, who they kind of use like a wide receiver. The only teams that have failed to get 100 wide receiver yards against Green Bay are Baltimore and Carolina, and that they don't really have great receivers. So I think Diggs is primed for a big one. He missed the first game against Green Bay. Teams are keying on Adam Thielen a lot more for good reason. He's been fantastic. And I think Diggs is going to be somebody who's trying to finish the season strong and has a lot of motivation to light up
and especially when you look at the Packers in terms of how they match up defensively, they've given a lot of big plays. They've given up, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL in terms of allowing big plays, certainly over the last 8 weeks or so. So Diggs is always a big play threat. I agree with you. I think he's a viable flex play. I'm inside my top 25. And then number 1, we'll stay in that same game in Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams of the Packers, I think, this is a guy that they really lean on when Brett Hundley is playing quarterback.
Right.
If you look at the 5 games where Hundley started and Jamal Williams was the primary back, you have an average of 70 yards rushing and 39 receiving from Jamal Williams. He has touchdowns in 3 of the 5 games, multiple touchdowns in a couple of them. So, he's a guy that they lean on, and he works well with Hundley. So with Hundley back at quarterback, I think it makes Jamal Williams a really strong play because they're going to try and run the offense through him, especially all those injuries they have at wide receiver.
No question about it, and I expect Xavier Rhodes to be on Jordy Nelson. So in terms of how they're going to move the ball against that tough Vikings defense, I don't think Jamal Williams has a great game efficiency-wise, but I think volume-wise, he could touch the ball 25, 27 times in this game. So I think there's a chance he gets in the end zone. I agree with you. I think it's a viable flex play based on the volume, not necessarily the matchup. Dan Graziano, you have made us smarter. Thank you, my friend. Good luck in your fantasy finals.
Thanks.
This weekend, we'll check out next week, see how that all played out.